Hey guys, so I decided to read the story Stone Fox, and from this cover photo and title, I was inferencing that the boy and the dog in the picture would probably be some key characters in this book. From the background, it's looking like they live on some sort of farm, I'm guessing. From the Stone Fox, I think they will probably go fox hunting or find a stone fox in the yard or something. When I read the first paragraph here that started with one day grandfather wouldn't get out of bed, I inferenced that the grandfather was probably sick or maybe even perhaps dying since it is a grandfather and he's probably pretty old. Once I started reading, at first little Willie thought he was playing. I started inferencing that the grandfather and Willie loved to play through on this farm, um, in order to make their work more fun and enjoyable and to get through the day. When I went down to like the time grandfather dressed up as a scarecrow, this started making me think of synthesizing when people pull pranks on each other, and like to tease each other just for jokes. And I think that the grandfather and Willie always love to play jokes and pranks on each other just to help their days go by and make life more enjoyable and fun. Once I got to the paragraph that started with grandfather always got up real early in the morning, I started making connections that, from myself, I grew up on a farm and I always had to get up early in order to work on chores and like feed the animals that are out of the barn and everything. So I was thinking that's probably why the grandfather would always get up so early because he needs to make breakfast for Willie before they go out and do the chores. Um, and Willie, being a kid, he would want to go sleep, just like it said that one time he did go back to sleep, and then his grandfather fed all his breakfast to the chickens, which makes sense because if you're not at the breakfast table, you don't get to eat. Once I got down to the paragraph that started, that is until this morning, I started synthesizing that there was something really wrong with grandfather. That there was something that wasn't quite right here. Um, Mainly because it said right before that grandfather was always up really early. So if grandfather's always up really early, why is he still in bed and not up when Willie is up? Um, so then went down to the get up, grandfather, really little Willie said. With this paragraph, I started realizing that something is definitely wrong here. At first, I was kind of thinking that it might have just been a little trick, just like Willie was thinking, but since Willie's even talking to him and the grandfather's not really moving or getting up or anything, I think there's something a lot more sinister going on here, where the grandfather is super, super sick or like nearly on his deathbed or something. Um, Once I went over here and read the paragraph about a dog was sleeping on the front porch, I started synthesizing that the boy um, will maybe be left with his dog Searchlight, because they were the only two back on the cover, the picture, the cover photo and stuff. So I'm thinking this dog will be all that the Willie is left with, um, once his grandfather passes away and stuff. Once I got down to this uh, paragraph here, a mile down the road, they came to a small log cabin. Um, I started inferencing that the dog would follow Willie home or ride with in a car with Willie, and basically tell him what's wrong with grandfather and why he won't wake up. Um, Once I got to the grandfather won't answer me, I started thinking inferencing that all of grandfather's pranks were starting to catch up with him because even the doctor was saying it's probably just another prank. He's just pulling a trick. He's just joking. There's nothing really wrong. So this was starting to make me think that maybe the grandfather shouldn't have played all of those pranks and jokes that he was, because now when it could be life or death, nobody's really taking him seriously anymore. And from this picture up here, I'm inferencing that the boy is really starting to worry about his grandfather as well as the dog, since they're running to the doctor's house, where the doctor is just sitting here reading a book, not really thinking this is anything yet. Um, then when I got down here and the doctor started asking how late did you two stay up last night, um, now I'm starting to make connections that something is wrong, because even now the doctor is even starting to get worried and thinking, okay, grandfather wasn't up, like he went to bed early, he didn't play his harmonica, he wasn't singing, so now even the doctor's assuming something's not right, which when a doctor doesn't is assuming something's not right, it's never good. Um, so then I got down to this paragraph here where it started saying Doc Smith shut her book and stood up. Um, once I started making connections here where this book isn't taking place in this time, because doctors, you usually don't go to a doctor's house when you go to get a doctor, and you also usually don't have a doctor that has a horse and a wagon. So with the horse and the wagon, I'm thinking this book is probably taking place in about like the 1800s or so. And also the doctor just grabs one little bag. Usually when the doctor goes to your house, they have like a lot of things in their bags and everything. When I went down to Searchlight put her big front paws up on the bed and rested her head on grandfather's chest, I started making the prediction that grandfather is sick with some sort of strange illness or something, because the doctor started examining him and didn't seem to know what was wrong with grandfather right away. Um, she was going through everything in her little black bag. At this point, I was also starting to think that maybe this is where the stone fox comes in, because since the doctor couldn't find anything in her own black bag that could be used to help grandfather, I was thinking maybe some stone fox or something will somehow help cure grandfather. Um, then I came down to this page and I saw this picture here of grandfather laying on the bed with everybody standing around him. And I started making connections that this picture looks a lot like pictures I've seen of people standing around the deathbeds of their loved ones who are dying or ill, where like the dog kind of lays on top of the person and stuff. So this makes me think even more that the grandfather's probably going to die by the end of this book. Once I got to the paragraph, must you ask so many questions? That started making, I started inferring that something big is just around the corner here, because Willie's asking a ton of questions and stuff. And once the doctor finishes doing her examination and everything, she just starts asking Willie about the potato field here and about whether or not they owe anybody money. So that makes me think and infer that something big is just around the corner. Once I got down to this paragraph here where it says that's just it, there's nothing wrong with him. That's made me start synthesizing that grandfather has just maybe lost the will to live or something. Since medically it doesn't sound like there's anything really wrong with him. Then I got down to Doc Smith took a deep breath. And once I read this paragraph, I actually realized my prediction from up here came true completely, that the doctor said he's completely fine. He's just appears that your grandfather just doesn't want to live anymore. And I was like, whoa, my prediction actually came true. So that was pretty cool, I thought. Then I got down to little Willie was silent for a long time, and once I read the rest of this story, I started predicting that even though the story ended with Willie saying, I'll make grandfather want to live again, I think Willie will continue on to try and help his grandfather and find out why he doesn't want to live anymore, what's causing this. But I don't know if he'll actually do it in time or if his grandfather will actually just die.